Hot topics from the soul, reaching all minds, turning knowledge into gold. Hey, hot topics from the soul, hot topics from the soul.
Hello and welcome to Hot Topics from the Soul. I'm your host, Dr. Valerie Parker Hagan, and I'm so delighted to be here with you this evening. We have an amazing show. I have my co-host, Dr. J.R. Thicklin.
And good evening, audience. And what a great day to be alive. I'm excited. I know the ladies are recuperating from a great Mother's Day weekend, and we're ready to press forward with things that are going to resonate with you and that's going to encourage you even in the midst of your challenges.
Indeed. I had the opportunity to go to Detroit to Lansing, Michigan with my dear friend, Shirley Carter Powell. She had her 25th year anniversary for Against All Odds, which is for cancer. So I was so excited to be there because I surprised her, Dr. J.
Yes, and I'm quite sure it was a surprise for her because she is so busy around this time here. And for you to show up, I'm quite sure it was just absolutely incredible for her.
Yeah, it really was shocking to her because she was upset because she thought I would just not make it. So me being there, I had a chance to spend that time with her at both of her events, the gala, which was that Saturday night, and the brunch, which was on Sunday. So it was a great time. And the weather was beautiful there. I was surprised.
Well, awesome. I guess every now and then the Sunshine State have to lend some good weather to other places.
Absolutely. Now, Mother's Day is past, but I have a guest. She is a phenomenal woman, Dr. Gladys David. I'm going to bring her forward. I met her a couple of months ago, and I was so excited about her story, and I'm going to bring her in. Dr. Gladys David, how are you?
I am fabulous. Thank you, Dr. Valerie. Hey, Dr. J, how are you?
I'm doing great. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I am excited to be here with you both.
Women go through so many oppositions, so many things are coming at us, darts every single day, and even in our sleep, because we're always trying to think of the next move. But what drew me to your story was the fact that you had a son that was born with a neurologic disease, and your life just went chaos from there. The show tonight is Challenges That Birth Purpose. And I want you to share a little bit about your story and how, the challenges that you face with that birthed you into the queen that you are now.
Oh, wow. So how long is the show, right? Yes, well, absolutely. It was a pleasure meeting you as well, Dr. Valerie. Yes, I can start with the year of 2010 that changed my entire life. It was not even the acronyms and the accolades behind my name at all that changed anything for me. It was clearly the discovery of having a child that was born with neurological challenges at the top of my career when I was doing so well. I'm like an Oreo. On the inside, I looked something different. And on the outside, I was completely a different person. So the changes that really occurred was, what does he have, and what do I do, and what is this? I mean, it's not what you expect when you have a child, and it's not what you expect when you're navigating a divorce at the top of your career. And how do I figure all of this out, and what's my priority? Certainly not the marriage anymore. Clearly, I mean, yeah, I built a very lucrative career for myself, but this child's life deserved a chance. It had an opportunity for me to take a step back away from myself and understand, what is this neurological challenge and how do I navigate this? Because this is a space I don't know. So
what career did you transition from?
Yes, I transitioned from being a corporate attorney.
A corporate attorney. Yes, and then you're hit with the news of your son with this not
Neurological.
and
Yes,
then going through a divorce. And
yes,
it was I wanted you to come on because there are so many ladies that may not be facing what you're facing, but the giants are still great.
yes.
But you emerge out of the ashes like a phoenix. How was that transition, getting that news, and what was that step the first step that you took from that?
I can tell you when that news hit me, social services in a hospital is what made me become that phoenix. They come at you, Dr. Valerie, Dr. J, and they offer their services. And at that moment, there was an overcoming feeling of subserviency. I wasn't looking for help. This child did not show up in my life. This child was a planned part of my life. And it was the circumstances of them telling me that, because I didn't know what that neurological challenge was. I was told he has a neuro. So what is that? So being a learned person, I wanted to know what was it. And then they came at me with all, he needs this and he needs that. Well, what is this and what is that? And so right there at that moment, I decided I don't want any of this. When I get home, I'm going to figure this out.
Hmm.
Stay in a hospital 8 days after he was born because he was so nervous and so jittery. And learning later on what a neurological challenge was became a path for me, because no one gives you a script. As they say, when you become a mother, it doesn't come with any instructions. Well, I tell you what, when you have a child with special needs like I did, there's a lot of information that's not spoken of or not understood or not explained to. So the first step I did was find out what kind of doctor does he need. So that was my first step in figuring out, how do I take care of this child? Because he cried 23 hours out of 24 hours a day because his nervous system was so distracted and so disturbed. He was born with trauma. So I had to figure out, what was it that caused this trauma? Of course, there was a lot of things that went into it. The divorce, the impact. When a child is in utero, that environment can be very disturbed. And so I took responsibility. That was the first thing I did. I took responsibility for this life. The second thing I did was put that marriage on the table, because that was no longer the important thing. And the third thing was helping my son become the best little person he can be. That meant getting him the services like occupational therapy, like neurological training. And instead of enrolling him in a place for a pediatrician that would treat him medically, because that's the first thing they tell you is he needs this, he needs that. Well, I need to know, what does he need? So I actually got my son a holistic doctor, and shout out to Dr. Holzer in South Orange, New Jersey. A holistic doctor would treat your child. So instead of me medicating him, because that's the first thing they'll tell you, he's going to need medication for what? So I made sure that I had a holistic approach to taking care of this little person. He's a human who deserved a chance. And if he wasn't supposed to be here, he wouldn't have made it the 8 months he survived inside. So therefore, he had a purpose for being here. And my job was to figure out that purpose and getting him the right treatment, the right doctor, alternative medication. And come to find out, this neurological challenge is ADHD, but it's more to it. It's ADHD combined with a nervous condition that actually caused him to not be able to sleep. Once I started to take a look at him as the person that he is, instead of, I have a problem, I should get social services, you should put him up for adoption. This is what the naysayers will tell you when you have a child born with a difference that if you learn to work with, if you learn to understand, if you learn to maneuver through it, you can do anything. And I did this while working as an attorney. And I had to figure out a way, how do I stop working so I can continue to care for this child? Because the challenges of raising him by myself now was definitely a new paradigm I had not faced. And so that was my transition into real estate, but not by accident. I had learned several years ago by taking a class in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, how do I transition? And for me, it was about a 6-figure salary and a 5-figure salary that I had to navigate. It wasn't some small piece of change I was trying to navigate, but that money seemed really small compared to what was in front of me. Being able to get the services that my son needed. daycare centers would not take a child with those type of neurological challenges because he's different. So therefore, I had to navigate finding a place that will be able to take him, and a daycare that a well prepared daycare for a child that had neurological challenges is about 5 figures a year. I mean, it takes a lot to raise him. And for me, money was not going to be my obstacle. I made enough for me to survive, but not enough for me to take care of him. And that's why real estate became that vehicle for me to make chunks of money by replacing my income little by little, but also in addition to my already existing salary, it was supplementing what I can do for him. I joined organizations like CHAD, and I've joined organizations like it's here in South Jersey, where at NAMI, National Alliance for Mental Illness, so that I was able to understand, you know, it's not the dream that you might have had. It's not the vision that you thought it was, but it doesn't have to be a dream that's over either. I was still existing. He was still existing. He was thriving in spite of what he was dealt with at his birth. And I wanted to ensure that I was there to provide for him as a single parent, limited family help. And so here I am today, and I had all the acronyms already. So, but one of my biggest acronyms is MOM. So that's really what it came down to. It didn't matter what all the initials behind my name was when I had this little person. The challenges of raising him was definitely something that anybody could have walked away from. I mean, I did say 23 hours out of 24 hours crying. I mean,
that's a lot.
That's a lot of crying. And, you know, and I was not an experienced mother, but I just walked away. And there were times where I couldn't sit in the same room with him. I had to muffle myself out. And I did have one sister who was willing to at least lend me a hand so I can sleep a few hours. But for me,
how long did that go? How long was it before it was a transition where that all of the help that you received took root?
It was about 3 months of this 23-hour crying. So I found the daycare, and she became a lifesaver. She actually said to me she had raised foster children that had the same type of behaviors. And she's the one that referred me to the Dr. Holder. And from there on, things started to get better for him. He started to get acupuncture. Yes, babies can get acupuncture. They don't use needles on them. He started to get chiropractic treatment. So therefore, helping his central nervous system align. And I started to see him too, because when someone is crying constantly, you don't see them. And then I started to learn more that lightness affects him. So therefore I had to keep the room dark. So I got that education when he was about 3 months old. So I was like, well, you know, things are looking up for us. We found as a daycare, we found as a doctor.
So you navigated, and your story is incredible, because once again, adversity introduces a man or a woman to themselves. It matters not where you are found in this situation, but it's the ability to navigate through it. And it is so interesting that as you talk about this and you connect it to your motherhood, one of the things this past weekend that I talked about was the whole thing of motherhood is a tapestry of many different things. You know, we give it all one title, but they're not all one experience. Not at all.
Not at all.
One of the things that I particularly talked about was the special need mother. I talked about the divorced mother. I talked about the single mother, who might be different from the teen mother, who might be different from the widowed mother, who might be different from the adopted mother. All of them are mothers, and yet and still the navigation of their journeys are quite different. In your case, there being a special need mother, you know, it caused you to be embodied with this whole balance, compassion, and patience, and to be able to advocate for your child. So you had to realign your own priorities, and you had to almost reinvent yourself in order to do this. And this is what we mean when we talk about the fact that there's nothing that happens for naught. You know, your attention shifted. I mean, God bless you. I mean, you was in the midst of a balancing act there, going through divorce. Here's the situation with your child. This is all new to you. How do I get through all of this? And yet and still, you managed to do so because you didn't keep your mouth closed. You sought, you looked for help, you found connections there. And I love something that you said, because it's something I advocate for. I am not the person who will ever say, don't be the first person who decide that you're going to go to medication when there's a diagnosis. Medication has its place, but I have this thing that when it comes to especially small kids, very, very cautious when it comes to any type of psychotherapy, drugs, or any type of things like that that can alter so many things. And I think the route that you went was great. One of the things that inspired me in what you just said was this, is that you did not stop. You did not stop. You understood the fact of you had to have the right support. You had to have the right things were there, and you navigated through it all.
Oh, yes.
Adversity. I mean, this is adversity. This is not cotton candy type stuff.
Yeah, this is
this is real adversity. This is because to balance one side of your life when you got the other side that look like it's falling too.
Yes.
It almost takes it takes almost a person who can just be a great juggler.
Absolutely. Giving up is the first thing that someone would say, just give up. That was never really an option for me. It still isn't. It was
Did
never
you find on this journey when you were trying to seek out resources and you were told to put them in foster care, did you find that that's what a lot of women wind up doing when they have children with special needs?
You want to know what's really funny, Dr. Valerie? As a volunteer in social services while I was in law school, I was a law guardian in the state of New Jersey. Many women just leave the hospital and they don't even walk out with that baby.
Wow.
They don't even walk out with that baby. He got what? And they would just leave. They would not even turn back. This was long before the safe haven law. So they just left.
Exactly.
So many women, in fact, I don't really have too many peers in this parenting. I had to make my own network in order for me to build what I wanted for my son. One of the things that I wanted to do was, I use the word normalize, but make his life as typical as I can for him. So I expose him to the right opportunities and not any opportunity. So I made sure he went to the right daycare. He went to the right schools. My transition into motherhood came also not only at the top of my career, I came as an older mother. So therefore I had to really do a lot of navigating and figuring out, what do I need to do so that I don't lose myself in this? So I believe in self-care too. I've always taken care of myself, even if it meant, paying someone a couple of hours who I trusted, who I vetted, that I can get 3 or 4 hours to sit in my home and take care of my son. But being able to care for him throughout the years, many schools would not accept my son because of his neurological behaviors, because what comes with this are behaviors. And yes, Dr. J, initially I did not use traditional medication working with this holistic doctor, but what he educated me on, this is very important. It's about the education that I received from this doctor. He shared with me that eventually he may need some type of medication, but this is the path that we should try. This is the path that we're going to increase him to. And there's a clinic that I also credit for more recently called the Amen Clinics in New York City. They did an entire, this is taking a look at my son's brain.
Right.
Examining his entire brain. So his brain works terrific. It works like all of our brains. It's just the left side that's impacted. And that's where the impulsivity comes. So I really, let's talk about knowing someone from inside out. I really got to know who this individual is. And, he's older now and he's mature, as I was sharing with Dr. Valerie.
How old is he now?
Phenomenal. He's 13. And,
he's a teenager.
He's a teenager now, but this is what I'm saying. He's phenomenal because the journey to get to 13 from back then, it was not looking like we would ever get to 1, ever get to 2.
That's a mother's love and resilience.
I applaud you, because one of the things that you said that is so important, and I put there even in the chat, the National Alliance, of Mental Illness, not only as a national organization, and even if you're listening today, there are many chapters all over. And so often, let me put it this way, even with people of color, a lot of times we run away from anything that we don't understand. We run away from anything that talks about mental illness or mental health. And the thing about it is that your fear doesn't solve the problem. You've got to be able to identify, and going back to you being a mother, here's the thing about being a special need parent. It's the fact that you have to advocate for your child who doesn't have the ability to advocate for themselves.
Absolutely.
And then secondarily, your ability, or you have to be committed to finding out what's there. You made it very plain, and I know that it happens very regularly. There are many mothers, and I'm not knocking them. They walk away from this type thing. They walk away. I didn't sign up for this.
That's
and
right.
Here's the toughest part.
A lot of times they don't have the mental capacity to deal with them, because a lot of times they're going through trauma of their own emotionally, because especially if they're a single parent and they have no one but themselves, that is another added trauma.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And another thing too, Dr. J and Dr. Valerie, is in our community. One of the things that people say, he'll outgrow it. There's nothing wrong with him. Not acknowledging that there is a difference. There is a difference. And we don't want to talk about our children having mental illness. And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging if there is. It's what you're doing is a injustice to your child by not finding out what it is.
Exactly.
It's my son has been afforded a lifestyle that I give all the credit to God, because I know that I was always pushed to the right person at the right time when I needed that person there for me. NAMI was a conversation in a bathroom in a courtroom with someone. Have you ever heard NAMI? I'm like, what's NAMI? Because everything I heard, have you tried that? I'm like, no, because I found myself with other parents that were going through it, but not my African-American parents. It was always my Caucasian parents who were always, and I felt like advocacy was the way for me to get him services, not gifted services, services that I knew he was absolutely entitled to receive. There's another hospital that actually I give credit to. It was Children's Specialized Hospital. It is in Mountainside, New Jersey. When you have a child that has those type of special needs, you don't take him to a traditional pediatrician, but he also needs a neurological pediatrician, someone's like a developmental pediatrician, someone that's going to track and measure how is he growing, even with the challenges that he has. With these challenges, is he making his milestones? I'm proud to tell you, my son has never missed a milestone. He walked on time. He spoke a little late. I'm glad he did, because he's a chatterbox. But he was able to hit all his milestones, and I was able to transition him into school. Another thing is that when you are transitioning your child from preschool to elementary school, many parents don't know that you can actually get an individualized education plan for your child.
Exactly.
You can get a preschool IEP. I was denied a preschool IEP in spite of the long diagnosis I had. But you know what? I've never met a no that I didn't know how to challenge. I was like, okay, no problem. I'll just write a rebuttal for this. I mean, that's how I parented. And to this day, I still parent that way. Okay, it's a no. It just means not right now, because I'm going to find another solution. And that's where I think that it makes all the difference, where his success is different. One day you'll meet this young man, and you can't look at him and say, oh, he's got a neurological challenge. And I look at him and say, I wonder if I had made that decision that other parents had done, where would he be? That was the one thing I would always have on my mind. Where would he be? Who would he wind up with? And what would happen to him?
A lot of children are born with ADD. So can you give some guidance or information? Because you said you had to deal with 2 tracks at one time. What encouragement would you give to those parents that are dealing with this situation, that about to pull their hair out and give up? Because it had to be exhausting.
It is. And so my advice to the mother who might be experiencing behavioral challenges that the schools keep saying, the daycares keep saying, first thing you want to do is take that child to a developmental pediatrician and get him the right diagnosis. There is not a person on this earth that can tell me what my son has. I mean, I have his chart in my head. It's not bipolarism. It's not OCD. I know exactly. His is, he has all four: AD, attention deficit, hyper disorder. He has every single bit of it. However, it is now something that he himself is coming to understand. I feel a little off today. I guess I didn't take my medication, right? So that is the first step. Get that proper diagnosis. Make sure that you get him diagnosed by a developmental pediatrician. That is, a regular pediatrician can't do that for you.
This is powerful information. It is. And I go back to the fact, some parents go through the stigma of shame. Yes. And let's look at it culturally, because too often when things happen to our children, we take a personal blame for it, right. Or we figure, and let me speak directly to men, because too often mothers are left in this fight by themselves. Too often mothers are left in this fight alone inside of it. Oftentimes with men, we become this whole crazy sense of masculinity, like that can't be my son and everything like that. My son's supposed to be strong. No, this is an opportunity. This is a challenge. This is an opportunity to become educated, to develop some sense of empathy and resilience, and do the things that are necessary to guide them through. And what we have to understand, even to the faith community, there's healing beyond a word of prayer. Yeah, we ought to pray, but their faith without works is dead. And what we have to understand, some things is not meant to just say, okay, lay hands and it's done. It is not abracadabra. Sometimes it's, listen, we got to walk through it. We got to navigate through it. And look at you. You going through all of this. First of all, you sound like you've got another degree or two. I mean, you sound like a therapist, or because you've had to learn so much, and that's the whole thing. We have to be willing to be educated so that we understand what's going on before we dismiss it. And I love when you brought that up, because so many times, rather than confront it, rather than to acknowledge what's going on, we will minimize it. We'll dismiss it as if, oh, it'll be all right. It'll change. Some things need attention. Navigating, being able to watch the development of your child, being able to say, listen here, this is not going to defeat me, because now what you can look at, you're looking at all these steps of victory.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Touching a point that you made too, Dr. J. Men, right. The biological father is not even a part of my son's life for that very same thing that you mentioned. But look at God. I've remarried.
Bless the Lord.
And do it.
And the man that my son recognizes as dad stepped into that role unapologetically, knowing he was walking into an atypical situation.
Yeah.
And when I tell you the relationship that my husband has with my son, no one would really know that that's not his biological son, because he took that role in place.
He took the total package
and put a stamp of manhood on it.
I love it. I love it.
I like that. Say it again for all those ladies that settle and put that man first instead of that child first. Say it again.
He put a stamp of manhood on when he took on the role of my husband. And for a long time, it was just me and my son and my husband. And my husband had to learn, Dr. J, how to navigate this. It was not typical. It was not something he's experienced, but he embraced this relationship knowing that, my son was a little different. He knew that. And he said, he's young enough. He said, this was his words. He's young enough, where I can put my blueprint on him. He said, I lost my.
I like Mr. David. I like him.
No, he's Farrar. David is my mom.
Okay.
Farrar. My husband is Gary Farrar. He said, I can probably put my blueprint on him. I can help you with him. I'm like, you don't know what you're signing up for. And we joke about it now, but there were times the man that I've married would call me, because I still travel now that I'm back to work in a corporate law and doing real estate. He would call me and say, you know, our man, that's what he called. He said, our man, J Man, you know, he got kicked out of the school. I said, what you gonna do? My husband owned his own business too. And he said, I'm gonna go get him and see what's up. And that's what he would say. And I'm like, I'm on my way home. He said, nah, we gonna handle it. You know, we gonna handle it. And I'm like, well, okay. So he took on that role of a real father. And I'll never forget the time we were all sitting in therapy, and the therapist asked my son, it's so formal that you call him Mr. Gary. He said, isn't he like a father? Doesn't he do father-like things for you? And my son worked his courage up. He was too afraid to call him anything but that. And he actually asked him, and he said, can I call you Dad?
Oh.
And he said, wow. He was like, if that's how you feel, I will be honored if you call me Dad. He said, but I don't want to push you in the wrong direction. And he looked at me, he said, Mom, he's my dad. And he was about 5. And he said, he's my dad. And from that moment on, it was like he felt like his whole world shifted. He would go pick him up from school. He was like, oh, Mom, you're here. I thought Dad would pick me up. So I became second fiddle. And eventually he started to really come into his own. And when my son turned 7, we found out we were pregnant, and I had another child since that divorce. And so my husband and I have a daughter, and my son is a big brother, and it's like a joyous story. And he is getting ready to go to military academy this summer.
Okay. Wow. You're muted, Dr. J.
You're muted, Dr. J.
Well, maybe I was saying this is so inspiring. This is like a Black Lifetime movie or something. It's pulling at my heart because of the fact there's so many different layers that is here, and we've gotten a lot of comments that is there. Thank you so much. I see Dr. Deanna Smith. She was giving some things about how important family support and all these things are important. But particularly, I speak to your husband.
Yes.
And stepping up and taking on that role. I tell people that, there's a title that we've given over the years. We call people stepfathers, stepmothers, right? In this case here, this is a step up father,
Big time step up.
He's
a big
yes.
role and stepped up. I mean, this is the person that can do man things. I mean, I've done a lot for my son, but he's teaching him how to tie a tie. I've never been a man, so I don't know. I remember he said to me, I know he's potty trained, but he's got to stand up to go to the bathroom. I'm like, right. I've never stood up, so you tell him how to stand up. So
exactly right.
These are things that my husband can do for my son. And he would come home and say, oh, Dad's not home. I'm like, I'll wait till he get home because I need to talk to him. I'm like, so he has some person to go to, even though my son understands that's not his biological dad, but he doesn't step him into anything. That's the only dad he knows.
Exactly. And that is a powerful thing. And to every person that's listening, and we invite you to share this with someone. You may have stumbled across it yourself, but share it with someone else, because, just coming fresh out for Mother's Day, but look at this whole family dynamic. And Dr. Val and I often do a lot of shows that deal with relationship, and all of that is all tied into one here, because I'm going to say this to the ladies. Oftentimes, ladies, you've waited long. A lot of time, you've been made to feel as if having children is somehow another, a deterrent for you ever having love and all those different things. And sometime in your mind, you've limited yourself. But if you're going to be open to having someone and you have children, you've got to understand the litmus test goes beyond the fact of biceps and triceps. The litmus tests go beyond dollars and cents.
Yeah.
The litmus tests go beyond all of those things. The litmus test is made when we're talking about compassion, acceptance, being willing to, if you would, morph into what this family is about, because this person is joining your family. So they must become adapted. They must be willing to. And the fact of the matter is that if they're going to truly love you, then they
and that's what he did. He embraced the whole situation. He had to learn so much. You and a what and it is. But you know what? Here it is. Oh, so many years later. And I'll say things to him that, yeah, I know what that is. You know, I don't have to start all over with him anymore. He embraced the situation. Our daughter is typical, and the dynamics of raising two different children is interesting. What I can say is she's 6, she'll be 7. She's always been very, very protective of her brother. Like she senses something different about him. And she's always been very protective of him. And they're frenemies because, you know, they're typical brother and sister. But for the most part, she looks out for him. If he gets in trouble, she feels troubled for him.
Absolutely.
Because that's her brother. And that's what she always says, you know, I got to talk to Dad because he's yelling at you. I said, I know. And they have twin names, even though they're 7 years apart. And it's just different. He is in the 7th grade, and we have collectively made a family decision, including our son, and saying to him, you know, you did so well last year. And he had tears. He brought tears to my eyes where he walked across the stage as a colonel's cadet. I'm like, wow. If someone told me in 2010 this would have happened, I would have been like, you're a lie. But it happened. And so now he's embracing going back. He's going back to the ROTC program. And this is where he's going to finish out middle school and graduate high school.
And see, one of the things that I love about you is the tenacity. You never gave up. You stayed focused. You still had your job. You have that S on your chest. And then now they call you the real estate problem solver. So tell me how you shifted into that role, even with all that you were embodying at that moment.
Yeah, so I had a dual career. So 14 of the 28 years that I practiced as an attorney, soon after my son being born, slowly replacing that income, I was working and practicing real estate at the same time. I was an investor first. And so I learned how to fix and flip, wholesale, house hack. I learned all the strategies with the real estate coach at night. When I got off work and got the baby to bed, I practiced at night. I became the real estate problem solver because I took on those real estate transactions that many typical agents can. Foreclosures, short sales. I mean, things that really requires a skill set. And yes, being a former attorney helps, but I was never a real estate attorney. But I am able to fix those problems for many people and bring that in. I became the real estate problem solver because the year 2007 and 2008, I sold 65 houses that were short sales. When other agents were going, I was doing 65 houses. Yes. So I became that solver because either I was going to short sell your house and negotiate with the bank that I'm going to get you $10,000 or $15,000 as transition money. It's called cash for keys. So I'm able to do those.
I remember that.
Complex.
But you did that if you're talking 2007, 2008, which was the time of the housing bubble burst.
Yeah,
and all
it was a mess.
In the greatest adversity, you were able to,
I thrive.
That's what Walking in Purpose does.
That's what it does. I thrive in chaos best. If it's calm, Dr. J, don't bring me to it. Bring me to the chaos. I thrive under, as a former attorney, I litigated a lot. I represented corporations, big corporations, Fortune 50s, Fortune 500s, top names, anything you see in a supermarket, I probably have represented those companies. I did those mergers and acquisitions between Nabisco and Kraft. So I'm accustomed to chaos. I'm accustomed to walking into problems. And to this day, not only do I still do those type of transactions and doing it, still having 2 children, still doing all the things I'm doing. The only thing I transitioned out of was my corporate job. And because I became that real estate that name was given to me by someone in Atlanta. I was actually branded by someone in Atlanta. I got a call about some kind of transaction. I said, I'm not licensed there, but I can guide you through the process, and I'll be able to get you either to keep your house or get you into an apartment, because I know lots of transition. I retired from a subservicing company as a senior vice president with the bank. So I know ins and outs of mortgages and things, how to navigate, stop sheriff sales, stop foreclosures, go to auctions. These are the transactions that I bring. And now that I do it for myself, I'm able to train and teach other women how to do what I do. So I actually teach and train other women, being in distress, non-distress, how to replace their income and learn how to become that real estate problem solver as well.
Good. And you have a book coming.
I do. I wrote a book August of last year. It's called The Ultimate Guide to Real Estate Investing for Women.
Wow. I have to say this to you, Dr. Gladys, because the fact you've hit so many different areas that we address on this show. I oftentimes, in my work of over 30 something years addressing domestic violence, oftentimes seeing women, the victims, come out. Many of them did not work, and so therefore it made them even more, if you would, vulnerable to the abuse that was there. So because of that, many of them didn't have skill sets. They did not know how to become self-sufficient. They did not know that. And one of the things that over the period of years, I know that I've advocated for was skills that we can teach, skills that they can learn, that they become self-sufficient. And you have proven inside of that can happen inside of what you've done. Now, it's not easy, but it is possible inside of that. And knowing that you can work your way through adversity. I love what you said. You give you the chaos, because that's where you flourish at.
I thrive in that. And I'm glad you shared that, because I did pro bono work at a house here called Raphael House in New Jersey for women who actually were in safe houses. And I went in there, offered my services, no charge, helped them write a resume, helped them learn how to write a check. Because I do understand, even though that's not the life I came from, I wanted to be able to give back to the community. And so when you are and also I gave them all my bad suits that I used to wear, those that can wear a size 4 and 5 back then. That's what I did. I went to Raphael's house and I helped them get a resume, how to interview, because they didn't know. Some women that I met at Raphael's house never even had the responsibility of writing a check before. So I absolutely understand that. And ironically, I'm partnering with a mutual friend of ours, Teresa, and I will be speaking on one of her events as well, because I think it's an opportunity for me to give back to the community, because I think I have so much to offer women in general, not just, my real estate coaching and practice, but I believe that there's an opportunity for me to touch other women, other women's lives who may not even know how to navigate this space of dealing with a child or being in that place. So Raphael's house is a place where I spend countless hours giving them services, and it warms my heart when I see a woman come back and says, I got the job. A person who never had a job, never knew how to even so much get out there and get on a bus for themselves, because they always been driven. So some of these women came from really privileged lives, and they just didn't know how to navigate without the benefit of a partner. And I'm speaking to the women out there that if the glass looks half empty for you and you think that there's no way out, take a piece of my story, get some courage from my story to let you know that all things are possible. And it's not the education, because there were things that didn't require, even with all the money, it wouldn't have been able to get me the services that I need. I was relentless in everything I needed to do, not just for my son, but for my own peace of mind, so that I can get him what he needed. And it's so important for us not to give up on our children, not to just let anyone determine he should take this medication. I would go to the pharmacy and sit with a pharmacist and say, I don't know much about this drug. Can you give me the backstory about this drug? It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to tell a doctor, let me take the information, because I'm not sure what that is.
Absolutely. And that's good information, simply because a lot of people won't speak up. They won't speak up for themselves, so they're not going to speak up for their child. They will sit back and just let that person dictate their reality, but they're actually living the reality, and they're looking from the outside, and they can't see inside what's going on, the struggle and the mental capacity that they're struggling with. So, I appreciate the fact that you're going into a little detail of what that looks like, because, you can say it and talk about it, but as you were given a pictorial of what it looked like, I was envisioning what that actually looks like. It was a lot of work. And, that's how purpose is. Purpose is not easy. Purpose is hard. You got to roll up your sleeves and you got to put in the work. Purpose is hard, but it's just like carrying a baby. Once it's ready to come forth, after you carry it in your womb of faith and birth it out into the reality, then things smooth out and it's okay. Right. But getting the work in is always going to be hard.
That's right. That's right.
I'm so glad and grateful for this conversation tonight, because, when we see adversity, it happens in our life. We've been so conditioned to want everything to be easy that we cringe when things happen that are out of our norm. And so the first response oftentimes is a sense of hopelessness and sense of I can't do it. And then there are those that will say, well, I'm just going to believe God, and it's more or less words. It's not actions. I say to people all the time, there's one thing to wish something happened. That's what Jimmy the Cricket did. Once I wished upon a star, but it's another thing to walk in faith. And because faith doesn't make things easy, but it makes it possible. And when we understand that possibilities is not necessarily draped by easiness, it is oftentimes forged by a sense of discipline, redirection, being able to be consistent and to be persistent. And it's like anything else that goes through transformation. It has to go through those cycles and those phases in order to produce the things that you will see inside of, just even with your son, inside of your own life, inside of your business. All of these things are happening. Indeed. You didn't have time to say, stop the world. Let me just deal with this one thing at a time. You had to navigate through it. And
absolutely.
For so many that are there tonight that are watching, and those that are even watching this or will watch this on a replay, be encouraged to understand that no matter what challenge that you have, every challenge has a purpose.
It sure does.
Every challenge have a purpose. And, and sometimes we just have to learn to fall in love with the process as much as we desire the promise.
Fall in love with the process. And what a process that is, Dr. J.
Yeah.
Well, the process is what squeezes the oil out of us.
That's right. That's right.
That absolutely squeezes the oil. It has just been a pleasure speaking with you, Dr. J. Didn't I tell you it was going to be a powerful show?
You did, and I didn't have much background other than that. But when she said it's going to be a powerful show, I said, okay, put on the seatbelt, let's go for the ride.
I absolutely enjoyed my time with you.
Tell individuals how they can connect with you. I have your website up. And
through my website, they can get all
that
my
because there are people that'll be listening and not watching, but they turn on the show and just listen to it. So sure. I want you to give your website and tell them about your book and what they can expect if they order your book.
Sure. So drgladysdavid.com. That's where you can log into my website. There you will find the book and the workbook, the companion workbook. It is a guide, a step-by-step guide to understanding how to start your real estate career. Often people would come to me, I want to do investing. Well, what they don't know is that there are 15 different real estate investment strategies out there. And I don't teach you all 15. I don't talk about all 15. I too am a student and continue to learn, because there's passive income, active income, but the most popular one that people want to do is the fixing and the flipping. And they will learn that by going through this book, it'll pique their interest to figure out their strategy. And as a strategist, I usually sit down and say, here's the best thing for you. Here's how we can strategize. So that is what it will do. The workbook also will allow them to sit down and write those goals. What do you want to do? Students that sit with me, they've got to do the work. And so it's great, the idea of wanting to do it. You've got to do the work. Dr. J, I think you said it so well. There are many, many obstacles in front of you. So yes, real estate investing is very rewarding, but it's also very challenging. And what this will do is give you that step one, and then to take you even further, because there are courses that come along with it. There's rehab manuals that come along with it. But that website also will give you a testimonial of my experience as an individual and what it takes to become an investor, as people like to call themselves. I've been investing now for over 16 years, and I'm just getting started. I'm just getting started.
Wow. That's powerful. Dr. J.
I have to say this has been a very fruitful time together. It's been one that, that speaks to both men and women.
Yes, it does.
That is one that speaks to families. It speaks to those that may be in the midst of adversity now. Some of us, when we're in adversity, we go silent. We try to put on the mute to mute out the rest of the world. And although that may be a strategy, it may not necessarily be, if you would, necessarily a solution, because we have to be able to listen to the right voices and have the right support system. And as you often say, Dr. Val, we have to be able to, willing to be, if you know what, take part in our own rescue. We have to be able to take part in our own self-sufficiency. Mm-hmm. And so I like ending, because if I had to sum up what I heard from you tonight, is that you were able to navigate through your challenges. And although you had a great career prior to all this and all those things that was there, what was birthed inside of you is what have propelled you. So I would just say, in the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson, you prove that what lied behind you and what lies before you are tiny matters compared to what lies within you. And that's what has gotten you to where you are. Thank you so very much for the night.
Thank you.
Such a powerful show. And those of you who are listening, we come on here every week with information with powerful guests like Dr. Gladys David. And if this has been a blessing to you, we ask that you support us, drjrthicklin.com. And my website is fromthesoulofAwoman.com. It's for domestic violence and children in single parent homes. And please, by all means, visit the real estate.
That's next week's show.
The reason why I said marriage, I was like, this woman found a king in the midst of the storm.
Right.
In the midst of the storm, because she was faithful.
Yeah.
Because she was faithful. See, a lot of people miss that, because everything is a process. There's work that has to go in there, because when you're in alignment with your assignment that God has for your life, then the world will beg for what you have, and that king will come, that queen will come, because you're adding somebody to someone who's already whole.
Absolutely.
Well said, Dr. Valerie.
So thank you so much for joining us on Hot Topics from the Soul. And we look forward to seeing you again next week. And thank you so much. And don't forget to subscribe to Hot Topics from the Soul. Good night and God bless.
Yeah. Hot Topics from the Soul. Reaching all minds, turning knowledge into gold. Yeah. Hot Topics from the Soul. Yeah. Hot Topics from the Soul. Yeah. Hot Topics from